The live stream, it likes to cut the feed to all the cameras. So we've got people joining us from around the world, no doubt. And we will be live momentarily here. Oh, why is it saying that?
Oh, that's right. I forgot we're mic'd up.
We just hang tight for just a moment. We're just having a slight technical issue with one of the cameras. There we go. So we're going to begin in just a moment. We are live right here at Able Danger Global Headquarters. And this is where the magic happens when people tune in and see Field and all of the broadcasts that you guys are doing. And I am pleased to introduce to the world Mrs. Field McConnell. Denise, hello.
Hi, Jason.
So lovely to meet you, and congratulations on overcoming the evil. Field, pleasure to see you in person, my friend. How are the two of you feeling this afternoon?
Pretty good.
I'm feeling very happy to have Denise back where she belongs, which is by my side since we're married.
Absolutely. It's every time I do a broadcast, we're in a new location and there's always a ton of technical snafus that seem to knock out the cameras the second I begin. So we're going to just get rolling with only two, unfortunately. But you two have been separated for 19 months, and Field has told us all how Christine Marcy had a hand in this. Why don't you give us a little background, Field, on how this all came about? You were in England, and it was Friday the 13th, of course. Donald Trump was in England. How did this all come about?
Well, I've been a whistleblower for about 12 years, and I'm very aggressive, and I believe I'm extremely accurate. And I have no fear and I have no favor. One of the people that gets a lot of my attention is my own sibling, Christine Marcy. But my own sibling, Christine Marcy, gave Barack Obama his passport in 1994 in the name of Barack Obama.
How do we know that Christine Marcy did that?
Because she was in charge of the National Visa Center back then. Because she's had a 30-year career in the bureaucracies in Washington, D.C., starting in 1969 with the Office of Economic Opportunity, where she worked with Dick Cheney, Frank Carlucci, and Donald Rumsfeld. And so my sister is one of the swamp monsters, and she's been there for 30 years. And my sister has been working for more than 30 years to destroy the United States of America, and she's working with some household names, and I'm reluctant to name names like George H.W. Bush and Hillary Rodham Clinton and John McCain. But, I sometimes will announce those names because they're critical to sharing the truth and defeating the evil that has gripped our country, by my estimate, for more than 240 years. And just like you mentioned Trump, did you not?
Yes.
On Friday the 13th, Donald Trump was over in England, and he was having a conference or a meeting or an audience with both Theresa May, the Prime Minister for the time being of England, and also the Queen of England. And I think I do understand why he was really there, but the mainstream media in both countries painted it like just sort of a get-together so they'd get to know each other. But on Friday the 13th, which was Friday of last week, 1 week ago today, Denise and I...
Unlucky for some.
Unlucky for some. Unlucky for Theresa May. Unlucky for the people in the British intelligence agencies that are trying to implicate the Russians in everything. And one of those everythings they're trying to implicate the Russians on is Novichok and some poisonings.
Yes.
But those poisonings lead right back to Chicago and Northwestern University.
Now, before we get into all that, I just want to reel you back for a moment, and I want to talk about how Denise came back with us here. When you guys were first married, it was in the United Kingdom or here in the United States?
It was here, excuse me, it was here in the United States. We got married in Las Vegas in June of 2016.
And how did you two first meet?
I was interested in MH370, and I had a few unanswered questions in my head about the technology. So I went onto the internet and I believe I typed in the autopilot and Able Danger came up.
So just to be clear, you're now establishing as a fact that being a YouTube conspiracy theorist does in fact bring beautiful women to you.
And this one, yes. But, you know, as far as women and beautiful go, I think every woman, every little girl is a beautiful creation of God. And if I'm wrong, I'm wrong. But I haven't been proven wrong yet. But yes, she is a beautiful woman, and I don't look at her that way. I really don't.
I didn't mean anything
other
than a compliment.
I'm just saying that we're all beautiful in our. I mean, there's other people in this room besides Jason, Denise, and Field right now,
yes.
And they're all equally beautiful. It's just that some of us have more opportunities to speak to America like we are right now, and we're speaking to England, and we're speaking to Russia.
Yes.
And when we're speaking to a global audience, we need to really try to be honest and make sure we stick to the facts. And is Denise beautiful? Yeah, she is to me. Is she the nicest adult female I've ever been associated with? Yes, she certainly is. And I have to say, and I'm going to say this politely, but she has a lot of nerve, because if people know my true history, a lot of adult women would backpedal, and the same is true of me. I don't have a flawless history, as neither do you, Jason, and I don't want to destroy any female's future. But Denise was interested in MH370. Whenever she Googled MH370 on autopilot, my name came up. She got in the chat room, and one day in January of 2015, I said, I see that we have people in England in the chat room. I'm going to Telford, England on the 27th of February of 2015. I know how to get to England. Once I get to Heathrow, I don't know how to get to Telford. And a man named Anthony Holmwood, a man named Doug McNichol, and a woman named Denise Clark, with an E, C-L-A-R-K-E, they said, well, we're going to that conference and we can give you a ride. And I thought, okay, there's a male Anthony, there's a male Doug, I think I'll go with Denise. So Denise and I started to communicate, and she told me she'd meet me at Heathrow on the 27th of February, and when I came out of reception, I knew I was supposed to look for a blonde lady about 5'3" with a white knit hat on. Mm-hmm. And when I saw Denise standing there, and she knew what to look for because of our broadcasting,
right.
But when I took one look at Denise, I thought, I'm sure glad I didn't pick Anthony or Doug. And so Denise and I was at love at first sight, like my parents. I can only answer for one of us. At me, it was potentially love at first sight, but it's turned out it's been a marriage made in heaven, and I hope it ends in heaven.
Very nice. And I'm sorry to have interrupted you, Denise. Mm-hmm. So that's a great story about how you met. And then, so you got married here in the United States, mm-hmm. and then at some point you went back to the United Kingdom and you were prevented from returning. How did that all come about?
We applied for a change of status, I think it was.
Immigration status?
Yes, and I'd gone home for Christmas to check up on things and see how my son was doing, and he was doing very well, and the plan was for Field to come over for Christmas. But there was a lot going on here, so I decided that it would be better for me to come back here. Mm-hmm. And I arrived on the 19th of December, and they just basically pulled me into the office like they did every time I came back here. They would always keep me for 2 hours or so and question me.
At the airport?
Yeah, because they knew that Field was a whistleblower. And they had downloaded copies of his radio show.
Wow. So the TSA actually does something. They're watching Able Danger.
Not TSA, Customs.
Oh. Wow. So Customs detained you because Field is broadcasting information and whistleblowing on MH370 and 9/11. That's unbelievable. I mean, it's believable, but it's shocking.
Yeah.
So they would detain you for hours at a time, And did they tell you this, that why you were being detained?
No, they just, questioned me about Field and,
Really?
Whether he was a danger to people or
Whoa.
a danger to himself, and, did I find the stuff that he was putting on the radio shows, whether it was appropriate, and, but they couldn't keep me too long, obviously, and they would let me through, but particularly on the 19th of December, they decided to send me back.
Wow. And before you and Field were married or together, had you ever been detained at the airport like that at all?
No, I wasn't actually keen on flying at all, as it happened.
But you'd been many times to the airport.
Yes. Yeah, I wasn't keen on flying at all, but once I met Field, I knew that I'd have to overcome that fear. So, and...
We got those great Delta flights now, too.
Yeah.
So, okay, so they detained you at the airport, and the last time that occurred, when you were not allowed to return to the United States, what exactly happened there? They said you have to stay in the UK.
Yes, they just basically got me back on the same flight that I'd came in on.
So you were in the US, they sent you back?
Yes, I arrived here, and then they sent me back.
Wow.
Because you don't actually gain entry into the States until they let you through customs. So I hadn't actually gained entry as such, even though I was at the airport. And they sent me straight back on the flight that I came in on.
So in addition to not getting to see your husband, you were obviously, in an immediate sense, inconvenienced. You were probably hungry, hadn't had a shower. You're forced to do 2 7-hour flights essentially right in a row after being detained in an uncomfortable situation. How did they treat you? Were they professional and polite or gruff?
Well, they tend to make you feel like you've done something wrong, like you're a criminal, but, they treated me okay. I mean, the agent in question, he wanted to get me back home on the flight because he didn't want to detain me overnight. He said, you wouldn't like it or something like that.
I'm sure.
And he gave me the impression that I would be back in no time, in time for Christmas.
Oh, really?
It was going to be our first Christmas together, so I was disappointed that wasn't going to happen. But he gave me the impression. He said, oh no, you'll be back here by Christmas, don't worry about that.
Wow.
But I think that was possibly just to, keep
you
me
calm in the moment. Yeah. And I'm sure you had no indication that anything other than that might happen.
I thought it would be cleared up, I'd go home.
Did they tell you why specifically they weren't allowing you to enter the United States at that moment?
It was something to do with incomplete paperwork. I was basically coming in with no... when you apply to go to America, you have to fill out a form. It's called an ESTA.
ESTA.
Yeah.
ESTA.
Everyone has to fill that out. And
they hand that to you on the plane, right?
No, it's completely different. This is all done over the internet. Even if you want to come here on a holiday, you have to fill it out.
And that's
you
the British government
that... Yeah, you pay for it and it lasts a couple of years.
Okay.
And that, for some reason, I didn't have one. I think that was to do with maybe applying for the change of status or something. So I was basically, according to them, trying to gain entry with no paperwork. So,
do you think there's any possibility at all that this was an innocent mistake, a bureaucratic mix-up of any kind? Because that's what skeptics would say, obviously. You're shaking your head, Field, no.
Yeah, do you mind if I answer that, Denise?
No, carry on.
When she was being detained by customs people and being disrespected, in my opinion, as her husband and as an older male, the agent came out and talked to me face to face. And I could read him like a book, and I want to be respectful to him. He knew that he was being forced by a higher command structure to turn her around, and he knew it was wrong. But had he not done it, he probably would have gotten some time off or lost his job or been reassigned.
Right.
But the reason I know for sure that he didn't want to turn her around, but he was coerced, is in the way he addressed me. He is a fairly big guy, 3 inches taller than me and 30 pounds heavier. He had a great big badge, and he had a gun, and he was trying very hard to be professional, but he was failing in that regard because it hurt him so bad to do this to her that he said a couple of things, including this. He said, "You and your wife are really starting to frustrate me." And I said, "Well, just please calm down." I said, "My wife and I are not trying to frustrate or confuse anyone. We're just trying to be together. So you do what you have to do with my wife with a clean conscience. And, the procedures are here for everybody. So if we violated your procedures, we want to be procedurally correct. And she wants to be with me, her husband. And if we can't be together in the United States, we can be together in the United Kingdom or in Russia or in Puerto Rico. We just want to be together." But he had a lot of pent-up frustration. And I can say right now with a recording going on that I'm 100% sure the reason he was frustrated personally is because he was being coerced into doing something he knew was unnecessary, unkind, and ungentlemanly. And do I hold any malice towards him? No, because see, I went through the same procedure in the military and the airline when people tell me to be quiet and don't rock the boat. And that's what this man was dealing with. Professionally, he would have been, there would have been punitive action against him if he didn't turn her around and send her back. And yet, as a man and a gentleman, he knew that that was very unkind and uncalled for.
But you're basically describing the entire structure by which this control is exerted. Individual people, I mean, we don't really know that guy. Maybe he's got kids, a mortgage, he's got all kinds of things he's got to worry about. And, in that moment, he needs to decide how much is it worth to him to do what he feels is right versus sacrificing his whole entire life. And we don't know what kind of jeopardy he could have been in. So that's interesting, and that's a good insight.
He didn't want to be unkind to her, and ultimately it was not him being unkind to her. It was the U.S. Customs and Border Protection bureaucracy, and it was targeted. And I'm not saying he knew it was targeted. I assume he did, but it was targeted
towards you guys. You mean you were targeted?
She was targeted because the people that want to target me, they can't get me. That sounds boastful. They could get me, but they don't have the nerve. For whatever reason, they're afraid of me. And we just saw this last week. She got stopped by a police officer driving my car with an expired tab. They wouldn't have stopped me in the same car.
You've been driving that car around all over the place.
You're going to see tonight at 7 o'clock some cars that have interesting registrations. But the law enforcement around here, including the FBI, including the county police, we have no municipal police. I'm not a shrinking violet, and I'm not trying to pull any fast ones. I'm just trying to expose evil. And when I say evil, many of your listeners will think I'm talking about corruption or crime. No, I'm not. I'm talking about evil. And there's great evil in this world. And that's why when they detained her the first 3 times for 2 hours apiece, they said, "Well, we're concerned about this guy that you're coming over to see. How well do you know him?" And they said, "Do you know he does this?" And they laid out 33 color pages they downloaded.
Exactly 33 pages?
Yes.
That's unbelievable.
Because of 33-degree Masons or what?
33. The number 33 is just recurring all the time.
Can I tell you what that is?
Please.
And I'm not trying to convince you. God is behind me. God is behind her. And God does not like evil in any form. And he will use common people to defeat evil. And I want to say something very positive and favorable right now. When Trump was in England Friday of last week, regardless of what the mainstream media of any country says was going on, Donald Trump was there not as a politician, but as a man and a father and a husband, trying to make sure that America, which is his country of birth, he wants to make sure America is dealt with respectfully by other nations. And from England, he went over to Helsinki and met with Putin.
Right.
Putin's exactly the same as Trump. He wants his nation to be dealt with respectfully. He wants his people to understand. People in Russia are much more spiritual than people in the United States of America. That's sad commentary, but it's nothing I can change. But
well, perhaps that's a function of the spiritual vacuum that existed under the Soviet Union for so long, when communists would not allow religion. That maybe creates a pent-up desire for spiritual guidance in the people of Russia. But I agree with you. I think Putin is Russia first, and that's reasonable. Denise, what would you say the general temperament of people in... You were living in London, correct?
Probably about 30 miles from London.
And how do people, in your experience, how did people feel about Donald Trump as president?
Well, if you go by the mainstream media, I wasn't impressed with mainstream media at all.
BBC and whatnot, Sky News.
There was clearly an agenda to turn the public against him. But in general, I think, many Brits like Trump and wish that, they had the same type of leader over there, because, we haven't had a good leader in, the UK for, since as long as I can remember.
What about all this stuff with the Trump baby balloon and all the protesting in London? Was that manufactured, or is that legit? There's got to be people who are fooled by the mainstream media.
Absolutely. People, the BBC, for instance, I pay no attention to the BBC. They're just a propaganda machine for the government.
Covering pedophilia with Jimmy, what's his
Savile,
name?
Yeah. And the public over there, they have to pay, I think it's about £145 a year.
A tax on television,
yeah,
just to fund the BBC. So every person in the country, whether you're watching television or not, is paying for that. And do you think the average person knows about Jimmy Savile and his involvement in pedophilia, his links to the royal family? He was very famous, wasn't he?
Yeah, he was around for a long, long time, but it didn't actually come out about him until when he died. I think that was back in 2012. But yeah, the BBC, they're not worthy to be called, the news channel. And the public are lied to just the same as they are over here. They believe that everything they're told, they don't research anything. It's quite sad, really.
And of course, Field and David have spoken quite extensively how the monarchy there in the United Kingdom still controls the United States through corporations like Serco and manipulations of the patent office, etc. And so it brings us back to how you two met. Field's research into the patents and the technology of the Boeing uninterruptible autopilot and the MH370 disappearance, which of course, Field, you'll be speaking at the Caravan to Midnight conference. Is it in November in Dallas?
Yes, it's November 9, 10, and 11, Veterans Day weekend, and it's a significant date to me personally, but also to America and the free world. Donald Trump announced on February 23rd of this year, 2018, that he was going to have a military victory parade in Washington, D.C. on Veterans Day weekend. And I'm going to say that real clearly. In February, he announced that in November, he was going to have a military victory parade. It's going to be the biggest victory parade we've had of a military nature, I'm sure, since World War II. And the only thing that's not going to be on display when it comes to military might and military professionals, now there's people in this room who've never been in the military, And they might think that I misspoke when I said military professionals. Well, you want to face a Marine with a rifle and say that? So, no, our military is very professional. The most professional people and the people that I'm an advocate for are the 18, 19, and 20-year-old enlisted people that have firearms, and they're called projectors of force, and they need leadership. And I've been associated with the military since I was born. I've been aware of the military since I was 5. I was in the military for 26 years, and I never myself have witnessed capable military leadership. And I'm not going to do it now, but I could give you names of 4-stars, generals, and admirals who are the opposite of good leaderships. They are bought and paid for by the United Kingdom, by the Jesuits in the Vatican, and I didn't say Catholics, I didn't say the Vatican, I said the Jesuits. The Jesuits, the United Kingdom royals, the European royals, and the 4-star people in this nation of mine have failed our military enlisted people, and Donald Trump will be correcting that. I am certain.
Isn't it particularly objectionable to hear these stories of people like Bill Binney and Scott Bennett and, yourself, and Michael Flynn, people who have dedicated their lives to serving this country, only to turn around and be stabbed in the back, slapped in the face, treated like criminals? I mean, the two of you have been put through really undue duress. It's been very difficult on your marriage for so many months to be apart. If you didn't have the benefit of I guess it's part of the severance package from being a Delta pilot and being able to fly back and forth, and the physical fortitude, a lot of people don't like flying that much. You made several trips to the United Kingdom during this 19-month separation, right?
I'm sure I made 6 or 7 round trips, but the fact that I came from a flying background and the fact that I can travel basically for free, that's not what preserved our marriage. It's faith.
Yes, of course.
Yes. And, we were blessed because of our faith, shared faith. We were blessed by having the ability to travel unlimited for basically free. Is it free? No, I'm going to be very specific because you're recording this. A $6,000 to $7,000 first-class round-trip ticket, if you called Delta right now and bought one, it'd be $6,000 to $7,000. If I can get on the airplane, I pay $170. Round trip or
Pretty
one
good.
way?
Pretty
Because I'm not paying for the transportation, I'm paying for the
Airport
landing
tax.
rights in London.
Yeah.
And so to go see Denise, it cost me $170. Jason, you've been married. If you were in the same situation, would you blink your eye about spending $170 to be with your wife for 3 weeks?
Certainly not, but I mean, I'm, also more financially fortunate than many people. A lot of people wouldn't be able to come up with $170, and certainly not 7 times. This is one of these techniques they use, the soft disruption. They're not going to come and do something, like shoot you or whatever.
They'd love to, but they won't.
It's too obvious. But to be able to do this type of bureaucratic barrier to conducting your marriage, I think they know it's like a slow, we always hear about this drip, drip.
Yeah. Well, I'm a fire hose, and if all they got's drips. Let me put this back in your court and give you a compliment. If I were to die, if I slept on a banana peel, if I got hit by a cement truck, or if I suffered an attack from someone and I died today, what do you think the value of this interview would be to you, Jason, tomorrow?
Well, I mean, I'd be very sad, but certainly, yes, more people would be interested to see this because what happened to Field?
You'd be the last neutral that talked to me and Denise, and you're also the first neutral that's talking to Denise and I together, because Denise doesn't like to pretend or actually act out the fact that she has a story to tell, but she does, and we're writing a book. In fact, I'm putting you on the spot, Jason. You see 4 books over here. The next title is War Bride. Would you be willing to write a little comment in the beginning of our book saying, I've met these people. Don't worry, you're going to do it too, Anita. But we use real people who've met us to say what they think of us, and we don't ask them. We don't tell them. If you said the guy's the biggest jerk I've ever met, a raging egotistical, I'd print it, because I want the truth to be known.
Well, I certainly would not say that. Yes.
Yeah.
And Field, I'd be honored to do that. And forgive me for not thanking both of you for allowing me this opportunity. I know, Denise, you were slightly reluctant to appear on camera, and thank you very much for doing that. I think everyone watching really wanted to hear this story, and the details are quite important because, again, this is not the kind of thing we're going to hear about in the mainstream media. And of course, Field and David and I, and certainly Field and David, have spent a lot of time talking about things like 9/11 and these big events that are manipulated by the mainstream media. But it's these individual stories that, you know, the more I'm talking to people like Kevin Shipp and yourselves, it's Robin Gritz, people from the FBI, Mike Dick. It is evil what they're doing to these families. Mike Dick is an FBI agent who they put out a false be on the lookout report, which is shoot to kill for local police. And they retracted it 2 hours later, but that report was used in a family court hearing to keep this man away from his young daughter for 2 years, and it's ongoing. So there is no limit to the evil deeds that the enemies of the truth will do to try to suppress this information. Now, Field, you've got a new book that's just come out.
I think there's a copy, right?
Let me grab it. Let me grab it, and I'll get it.
Yeah, and
there's the book right there. So tell people about the book if you could.
okay, I like to be brutally honest. A man in Florida called me in January, and the man's name is David Smith, and David Smith said, Field, I want you to write a book. And I said, okay, I will. And he said, well, don't you want to know what I want you to write about? And I said, David, it doesn't matter what you want me to write about. I use stream of consciousness, so I'm going to write your book, and the sooner you get off the phone, the sooner I can start writing. I said, I can write a book in 30 days easily if you want me to hurry up, because I need to get over and see Denise. I'd like to write it in the next 2 weeks, but I can't start writing this book until you get off the phone. And he said, yes, but I want to tell you what the title of your book should be. I said, well, go ahead, David. He said, I think it should be I think it should be Field of Honor, which it is. And I said, well, now you got my attention because that's my first name, Field. Why did you want the book title to be Field of Honor? And he said, because that's what you do every day, Field. And I said, what do I do every day? He says, you honor your parents. And I said, well, that's the biggest compliment anyone could give me, and I hope I can live up to it. But I said, if you'll excuse me now, I'll go write my book, and 2 weeks from now I'll call you when it's done.
And you know,
go ahead.
Sorry, I was just going to say, while we were preparing for this interview, I didn't mean to cut you off, but you were telling us a very interesting story about how your parents met. Do you want to go into that at all?
I'll do it very quickly.
Yeah.
My parent, in fact, there's a woman in this room, and she's not on camera. Her name's Anita from Canada, and she actually wrote something in this book about how my parents met. But and people, I'm not trying to sell books. In fact, I gave you one. Do you remember what you paid me for this book?
I
Nothing.
believe it was $0.
Yeah, it's not about money. It's about the truth. And the truth is, Anita sponsored a chapter, and I mean sponsored intellectually, not money-wise.
Right.
She said, Field, I want you to write a chapter about this. So I did. My father was a POW in World War II. He had been a B-24 pilot in the Pacific. He was shot down, and it was not random. He had a special weapon on his airplane, and the Japanese merchant shipping didn't like my father and his aggressive nature. Some things run in the family. But anyway, they shot my father down. My father was in prison camp with Louis Zamperini and Pappy Boynton. And when my father was released 16 months later, he was emaciated, he had beriberi, he had rickets, whatever that is, and he had gone into the war at 210 pounds. He came out of the war at 110. And one day, my mother, who was a second lieutenant in the Army Nurse Corps, my mother was a second lieutenant registered nurse in the hospital in San Francisco. And if you can think back to MASH with Margaret Houlihan,
Yep.
Hot Lips, my mother's boss was a major Army nurse, and my mother's boss came up to my mother one day and said, her name was Odom, O-D-U-M, and said, Lieutenant Odom, have you been on the 4th floor lately? And my mother said, no, I'm on this ward on the 1st floor. And the major, like Hot Lips, said, I think you might like to go up to the 4th floor when you get a chance and look at bed 407. So my mother, who had a lot of energy like some people think I do, my mother, when she could get away from her duties, she ran up to the 4th floor. She went to bed 407. She looked at my father, who was emaciated. He was 6'3", and he weighed 110.
Whoa.
And my mother found something in I'm starting to feel bad, but my mother saw something in my father that she respected. And my father saw something in my mother that he desired. And my mother and my father on that meeting decided, well, why don't we get married next week, 7 days later? And my mother's boss, the Hot Lips equivalent, said, when my mother put in, back then you had to get permission to get married.
Wow.
I've been through that myself, where people try to give me permission to get married. I say, God gives me permission. You guys take your paperwork and enjoy it. But my mother said, well, we really want to get married, and we'd like to get married in 7 days. And she said, I'll never sign that. It's way too fast. You can't get to know somebody in 7 days. Give me the paperwork, and I'll sign it. In 2 weeks, you can get married. 7 days or 14 days.
Yeah.
So my parents got married 14 days later on November 11th of 1945. They were extremely happily married until my mother died in September of 2007 after 61 years, where in 61 years I heard one argument and it scared me to death. I thought my parents don't love each other.
Wow.
But I found out they did.
Yeah,
and
61
my parents
years.
are together. Their remains are at Arlington, and we're going there next month on another matter. But August 1st, Denise and I are going to present a check for $17 million to a scholarship fund that takes care of veterans. And we don't have $17 million, but we're still going to do it. And we will go to Arlington, and she will see where my parents last stopped before they left this earth.
Wow.
And I'm so blessed to have been the product of my mother and my father. Now, my mother has appeared on other books, but this is a picture of my father the way my mother would have remembered him. When she met him, he was a first lieutenant in the Army Air Corps. They got married. They had 61 years together. And I was sort of misled because I thought everybody that gets married stays together 61 years.
Right.
I'm preaching to the choir. It
Yeah.
doesn't always happen,
No.
but it always should.
Right. It's a very nice story, Field. So for people who are interested in the book, how can they get it?
Well, I've been telling people on the internet and on live broadcast and this type of a thing, thank you very much for sharing your time with us, Jason. But I've been saying for 19 months, I'm not writing another paragraph, I'm not sending another book until my wife and I are together. But now that we're together, if people want this book, my email address is fieldmcc@yahoo.com. And between Denise and myself and the lady you may have met named Marcy, who lives here in Plum City, she's an IT pro. And we will make these books available. And this one, it's really a humorous mistake. There's 3 people involved, no, 4. I almost forgot the most important. I write the words, Denise edits the words and inspires the words, and Craig Peterson has made those covers over there and this cover, and he'll make every cover of every book I ever write. But that's 3 of us involved in the writing process. There's a lady off camera named Nancy. Nancy, do you know the name I almost forgot?
No.
God.
Oh.
I mean, I'm just writing the truth. I might write it in a humorous manner. I might, you're not going to believe, look at the picture I hope you can't get this with too much definition. But this is a very awkward picture. It's in my book, and this is the governor of Wisconsin. Okay?
Let's see. Hang
Now,
on. Let me see
some
if I can
people-
see. Which is? The guy, the wrestling
The guy
outfit?
that looks, guy that's laying on a Nazi flag undressed.
Oh, wow. What are we looking at there?
You're
So
looking at a
weird.
guy who is owned by the Koch brothers, Koch,
Yes.
and he runs Wisconsin.
Whoa.
And now you're going to understand why there's people in Wisconsin that really don't appreciate my writing. Well, if I was living in Texas, I'd be writing about Texans. If I was living in Utah, it would be Utah people. I'm writing about what I know. I'm writing about the truth. And does the truth scare me? No, it does not. What does scare me is what if people didn't discern the truth and then share the truth And I'm going to show you a belt buckle, and better than that, Denise and I, unless she tells me not to, here comes, I will give you a belt buckle before you leave this office today. And on the back of the belt buckle, it says Ephesians 5:11, and I'll quote that, "Have nothing to do with the evil deeds of darkness, but rather expose them." That's what I do. And there'll be a number on it. And you're sort of a lucky guy, because we had 100 numbered buckles, and how many do we have left? Maybe 3?
Something like that.
Or
yeah.
2. Not from, oh, do you want to, Jason, would you like a cookie?
I'm okay for right now, thank you.
Yeah, I'm okay too, thank you very much. The lady that just brought the cookies from the bakery here in Plum City is from New York City, as are you. But, you know, what I've been called to do, and I know to some people it would sound boastful, arrogant, or sort of like a Bible banger, which I'm not, but I've been called to expose evil. And when I was called to expose evil, I wasn't told how to do it. And the entity that called me to expose evil trusted me. And every day I thank him for trusting me, because it's not easy, and some people would say it's scary. It's not scary to me. I've been doing it 12 years, and I'm still here. You can touch me if you want to, but I'm here.
And you know what, Field? I agree with you, because even if it is scary, in my view, and the thing that motivated me to get involved in this, is that the alternative is even more scary.
Yes. Now, am I correct in thinking you have some history in Hollywood?
Correct.
Did you see anything at all, without being specific, anything in Hollywood that you would characterize as both evil and bad for children?
Well, in terms of being a person working in Hollywood and having insider information, I can tell you that my career in Hollywood ended. I was a cinematographer primarily, and my specialty was stereoscopic cinematography. I've developed camera systems, and I've worked on films as a member of the crew, specifically doing 3D stuff. And I do remember certain incidents where I was either invited to participate in things that were innocuous, but when I didn't agree to do that, I never really went beyond a certain point in Hollywood. And that's, you know, not the reason my career ended. That had more to do with audience demand for 3D movies, my specific area of expertise in terms of 3D, and just, you know, the fickle nature of the market. But it was clear to me that you need to be willing to do certain things to get to the level. For instance, I've been to parties where people disappear into rooms, and I'm sort of not part of that crowd. And I think that once you go behind the door of that room, you begin to become indoctrinated into whatever it is that people anticipate is happening there.
Yeah.
But I think that there is, you know, certainly in the strictest sense, a lack of morality, not only in the entertainment produced in Hollywood, but part of the reason I left was, as a business, there were a lot of people who were willing to do things that I didn't consider scrupulous. And it became very difficult from a practical sense. I mean, I didn't like turn my back on millions of dollars. I just got screwed out of so much money that I sort of went broke, so I had to leave.
Well, I'm glad to hear you. First of all, I want to acknowledge for your listeners that everything you just said, I've heard before, and it's consistent with the way I heard it the last time. And also, the thing that you sort of touched on that you didn't elaborate on is exactly how my sister, and you know my sister's name, don't you?
Christine Marcy.
Christine Marcy, with a K, M-A-R-C-Y. My sister would have been videotaped as early as 1966, but more likely in 1968 or 69.
Oh, the Mendenhall thing, right?
Well, I don't want to gross or offend. I don't want to offend your listeners, but if they just look up the term Mendenhall baby,
yes,
it's terribly abusive. It's disrespectful to women. It's disrespectful to children. It's disrespectful to God. And for the Soames brothers at Circle, they're disrespecting themselves. And so
David has educated me to this. He and I have done several interviews where he's shown me that guy and your niece and gone into the details so people can.
I had the sad duty to explain to my parents what was wrong with my sister. And they knew that something was wrong because she claimed to be married, and she was, and she claimed to have a male husband, which she did, but she'd go on vacations with another woman, which she did. By the way, The woman's last job was in New York City in World Trade Center 7. And both my sister and this other lady, who I'm not naming out of respect to her, because she's deceased and she cannot bite back and attack me. My sister can. Christine Marcy, if you see this and you want to talk back to me, bring it on. Please do. You've got an audience, but you've been strangely silent for 12 years, and you're a horrendous abomination to your parents and to God. Right. And I didn't say your God, because she has no God.
And certainly you're not hiding from anyone. We're here at the the global headquarters of Able Danger, which is a global, cloud-centric crime-fighting organization that you have started, and you and David are the figureheads, essentially. You know, what I think we might try, if you're interested, Field, is we could take this interview slightly portable and just look around the office, take people into the world of Able Danger here.
That would be great.
Now, I want to make sure that we're not getting outside the range of the wireless microphones. So let's, why don't we just...
Can I carry something?
Well, no, it's not a matter of that. It's just we're going to sort of start off in this room, and we can, look at some of the things. You had books and things that you were talking about. Why don't we do that? We can.
Okay. If you point, I'll talk, or if Denise wants to talk,
you've got your items over here, the books and everything.
Okay.
And Denise, you can join us or relax on the couch, whichever you prefer. We've got a nice audience right now, 434 watching us. So what have we got here, Field?
Well, these are the 4 books I've written. And I'm not suggesting that anyone should buy them because of the information that is in them, but the information that's in them is all truthful to the best of my knowledge, and it's somewhat entertaining. But the titles are Gadget Bent, and that term is an aviator term for military fighter pilots. When your radar, your air intercept radar that you launch your weapons based on, Gadget Bent. I'm glad you did that, because this is my picture, and I'm in a gin mill in Rapid City. In other words, this is a 100-year-old plus bar, and this picture right here is a Marine Corps pilot that was at Marine Corps El Toro with me in 1974, and he later blew the whistle on the cocaine that was being smuggled into the LA basin. The man's name is Colonel James E. Sabo, S-A-B-O-W.
What happened to him?
George H.W. Bush told the Commandant of the Marine Corps, whose name was General Al Gray, on the evening of 21 January of 1991, G.H.W. Bush told the Commandant of the Marine Corps to silence him. The next morning, Colonel Sabo was called out into his backyard by a man named Colonel Underwood, and he went out into his backyard to talk to his neighbor, Colonel Underwood, and he was bludgeoned with a ricket. Not a ricket. What's that game over there?
Cricket bat?
Cricket bat.
Yes.
He was bludgeoned brutally murdered with a cricket bat, and then, thinking he was dead, his assailants, which were a combination of CIA assets and U.S. Marine Corps assassins, they put a 12-gauge shotgun in his mouth and pulled the trigger. Well, he wasn't quite dead, and they know he wasn't quite dead because of, unfortunately for his killers, and I've named Colonel Underwood, Al Gray, and George H.W. Bush. They killed him because he knew too much about cocaine smuggling. Wow. They killed him the night before the 1991 Gulf War kicked off, because in 1989, G.H.W. Bush had been caught in a male prostitution ring involving underage males from the Nebraska Boys Home.
The scandal, what's the Franklin scandal?
Yeah, it's the Franklin cover-up.
Right.
Yeah, and the Franklin cover-up was covering up the fact that these people from the Nebraska Boys Home, it's called Boys Town, right, Nebraska, they were taken from Boys Town, which is an address in Nebraska, west of Lincoln and west of Omaha, somewhere in that area. And they were flown to Washington, D.C. from Offutt Air Force Base. Mm-hmm. And in Washington, D.C., they would have been picked up at Andrews Air Force Base. And they were taken to the White House and to the Naval Observatory for late hours parties, entertainment. And these adolescent males were abused by George H.W. Bush and some other powerful politicians. But I'm only mentioning George H.W. Bush. because his name's on the front page of the June 1989 Washington Times.
Yeah.
And
I've
it's
seen
a
it.
matter of public record.
It shows receipts and things, doesn't it? There's a credit card receipt in that article that is...
Yeah, I think it might say entertainment. What it meant was prostitution. And see, most of us, like me and you, when we grew up and we heard the term prostitute, we said to our dads, "What's that?" And they would say, that's somebody who does something for money. And so you and I, in the world we grew up in, the time we grew up, and I know you're 23 years younger than me, we always assumed prostitution involved a male and a female. Well, not with the people running the world. Jimmy Savile's name came up.
Yes.
Edward Heath was the prime minister.
He was convicted, wasn't he, of pedophilia?
Do you know if he was convicted? He is well known. Everyone knew he was a pedophile. He had a pleasure yacht named the Morning Cloud, and he would go over to Jersey, which is one of the Channel Islands, and he would pick up young adolescent males that were kept in what they call in the United Kingdom care homes. And I call them don't care homes. But he would go over there, and Jimmy Savile did the same thing. He could go to care homes, and you could tell them what you want. I want a 12-year-old girl. I want a 14-year-old boy. They give you what you want. And this is the Prime Minister of England, and he's not the only one. There is a lot of abuse of children, and it's corporate, industrial, government condoned abuse of children. And there's some things in this life worth dying over. And if I could stop one child, I don't care black, white, yellow, red, I don't care male, female, I don't care about post-pubescent or prepubescent. All of those things are on the order sheet on what's on the menu. And in court, right here in Pierce County, Wisconsin, on the 21st of August of 2014, under oath, in the jury box, I was asked by the judge, along with the other 11 jurors, do any of you 12 jurors have any personal history with pedophilia? I raised my hand. The judge looked on his cheat sheet and saw my name was McConnell. And the judge says, "Mr. McConnell, you have personal history with pedophilia?" And I said, "Yes, Judge." I said, "My sister and Hillary Clinton run the biggest global net-centric pedophile fulfillment organization in the world." He said, he put his hands over his ears, and he said, "Too much information, you're excused." Well, it's either on the record or they've expunged the record. And either way, not only would that judge and that court be guilty, and I said guilty, I didn't say adjudicated, they're guilty of misprision felony pedophilia. They're also guilty of misprision of felony treason, because in these same courts I've given affidavits as to the treasonous activities of Christine Marcy, Hillary Clinton, John McCain, and Bush and Obama. And if people think, "Field, you sure are going after a lot of big names." Yeah, I am, but I'm going off after a lot of big abuses, crimes, and abominations. And am I afraid of what they may do to me? No, but I'm afraid of what God may do to me if I don't do what He asked me to do, which is very clear: expose evil. Can we show you anything more?
Yeah. I think people are going to be very interested to just get a general sense. I mean, this is your office, and I don't know, has this stuff ever been seen on live stream before, Field?
Not this side. This is where we keep, we're not about making money, but there are things, and these books are available. And once again, my email address is fieldmcc@yahoo.com. Before you leave, make sure you take a coffee cup or two.
Oh, wow, yeah.
Yeah, we've got all sorts of stuff, and we are willing to sell everything in here, but that's not our motive. Our motive is not to make money. Our motive is to share the truth. There's two reasons, and they're both to your right and lower. This book was given to me by a man named Lance Dangerfield in England. It's an 1873 Bible from England.
Whoa, let's look at that.
Well, it's a family Bible. Actually, look what I just found. How would you like to be number 86?
That sounds good to me.
Put it in your pocket.
Thank you very much, Field.
You're welcome. But this Bible, it's a family Bible, and I think I'm going to be embarrassed here if I get it wrong. I've got two of these antique Bibles, and in this one, I think in the center,
Oops.
yeah.
That was just making a sound. Here, let's do that.
Are we still okay?
Yeah, we're good.
Okay. Somewhere in the center of this Bible, there's a note from a man to his 5-year-old daughter, and he says, you know, you're the blessing of my life. On your 5th birthday, I'm giving you this Holy Bible.
Wow.
That was 1873, and a man named Lance Dangerfield, who died this March, gave this Bible and another one on the other side to Denise and I, because he had so much personal respect for what it is we're doing. In fact, see, Denise and I don't feel comfortable, thank you very much, when people say we respect what you're doing. Neither Denise or I are doing anything other than what we feel called to do, which is expose evil. And can we stop it? No, we cannot. But we can encourage people like Putin and Trump and the Marine generals, and we can, there's good people everywhere. In every bureaucracy, the majority of the people are good, but they're all suppressed by people at the top that enforce the wishes of the people who used to run the world. And I'm going to say that again. The people who used to run the world. As of Friday the 13th in England, and as of Monday the 16th in Helsinki, there's a new paradigm, and the world, I believe, will be saved. I totally believe it will.
I was very impressed by the meeting in Helsinki, and I was a little disappointed when Trump sort of backed away from Putin's offer of this joint investigation into Bill Browder. And
he backed away publicly, didn't he?
That's what I was thinking.
But we don't know what they talked about privately, do we?
That's interesting.
Okay, I think Putin is going to give him all the evidence he needs for not only the financial transactions of all the global Kabbalists.
Yeah.
I know for a fact that Putin has enough truthful evidence about 9/11 that if your native New Yorker friend, President Trump, really wanted to honor his commitment to revisit 9/11,
he better.
Well, I hope he does. And Putin has some videotape of something I know, and I'm one of the few people that has exposed it, but the airplanes that are thought to have hit the Pentagon, or there's other people that said, no, nothing hit the Pentagon, nothing hit the trade centers. That was all CGI.
No, I disagree with that.
I disagree with it too. and see, the difference between those guys who said it's CGI and me, I'll go anywhere, anytime. If it's in a U.S. court, as long as they don't have a gold fringe flag, I'll testify with my hand on a Bible.
And I can be your expert witness because I have debunked the claims that they've made about CGI based on my knowledge of optical flow technology and visual effects, and they're totally incorrect.
We're on camera, right?
Yes.
I'm going to tell you something, and I'm glad we're on camera. I do believe, and for anybody who thinks this is an overwhelming boast, if you were to Google Field McConnell, 29 July 2015.
I'm sorry to interrupt you, Field, but 911 people watching right now.
Okay, for those 911. Now, what number was it? Was it 911?
Yes.
Yeah, okay, 911. For those 911 people that know they're listening to the truth, and I'm going to hold up a picture of the airplane that the Clinton family used to. Now, first of all, I'm a Caucasian. I'm not a Caucasian because I want to be. This is how I was born. This is an airplane.
Yeah.
It's a U-2 aircraft.
Oh,
it's a
wow.
specific tail number. The tail number is 80-1076. This is an original picture of that airplane in a hangar at what is now called the Coast Guard Air Station, Borinquen, Puerto Rico. Don't try to understand this. This is the nose. There it is.
But this one here, this is an
This
illustration,
is an
right?
artist
Yes.
rendition.
Okay.
This is a photograph of the nose of that aircraft when it was in a secure hangar with armed guards. And so a very good question from someone of your 9/11 that might be, if that was protected by armed guards, how is it you have the original photo, Field? Very good question. But this paint, it's not paint, it looks like paint, it's chalk. And it's the Puerto Rico flag. It says Surfs Up. It says 9th SRS, which is Strategic Reconnaissance Squadron, and that's a Dragon. And this airplane's called Dragon Lady. The U-2 aircraft were spy aircraft that Clarence Johnson from Lockheed Skunk Works developed, and they wanted an airplane that could fly over Russia at an altitude where the Russians couldn't touch the airplane, and they did for a while. And then Gary Powers went out to fly one day in 1960, and he didn't come home because they blew him out of the sky. But the aircraft's still in use today, and I'm going to say something that will shock some of your people, your listeners. And of course, if what I'm about ready to say, if I were to say it and it wasn't true, I'd probably be locked up in 5 days. That particular aircraft, which is a U-2, it's an R model, it is serial number 80-1076. It was used in the Katrina false flag against New Orleans, where they killed blacks, which was one of their intended targets.
How is it used? How is it used in Katrina to create a hurricane?
To try to manipulate the weather. Katrina was a natural occurring hurricane, and this aircraft can help manipulate weather.
How does it do that?
That's beyond me. It's a technical question. But the thing that really needs not to be wasted is this particular aircraft was operating out of Puerto Rico at the time of the Haiti HAARP quake. I said HAARP, H-A-A-R-P.
High Altitude Atmospheric Research Program?
Yes, and there's four physical antennas around the world. One's in Norway, one's in Russia, one's in Alaska, and one's in Puerto Rico. The gentleman...
Ooh, I've seen that one in Puerto Rico. It was featured in a James Bond movie.
Yeah, and it's
Giant
in a parabolic...
radio telescope, yes.
Well, your audience is going to love this. The guy who created it was from a prestigious university. It starts with Cornell.
Ah.
And his name was Dr. William Gordon. He was an astrophysicist who conceived of the idea of bouncing this type of electronic energy from an antenna pointed directly into a natural parabolic valley.
Oh.
So they searched the world and they found, I think, 3 parabolic valleys that would suffice. Only one which is anywhere near the U.S., which was Mayaguez, M-A-Y-G-U-E-S, Mayaguez, Puerto Rico. Where is it? No, it's Arecibo, excuse me, A-R-E-I-C-I-B-O. Dr. William Gordon, who conceived of it, he oversaw the construction, he operated it the first few years. My relationship to him, his daughter, and I'm not going to say her first name, but there's someone in this building with the same first name, and it's not Denise. But Dr. William Gordon, who's deceased, he created this, and his daughter came and lived at my house during the school year because Dr. Gordon and his wife had to stay by the Arecibo telescope, and yet his daughter was an English speaker, not a Spanish speaker, and she needed to be on the Air Force Base. And so I not only have a copy of this airplane that was used in the Haiti heartquake. Now, I'm not racist, I'm anything but that, but most of the people that are indigenous Haitians are black people.
Correct.
And I'm tying the Clintons to the abuse of black people, where they go in and they create all these orphans, and then under the guise of, well, these orphans need to be provided for, they go in and they traffic the orphans, the ones that are desirable enough to be sex trafficked, they go into that. The ones that aren't pretty enough, or they're just not useful for that type of sex trafficking, they get into organ harvesting. Now, if anyone thinks that the Clinton family or the people they work with should try to silence me, well, they should have, but a long, long time ago. It's way too late now. If I died of natural causes tonight, within a week, people would say, Jason, what did you think about that interview?
Yeah.
That was his last one. Well, I don't think it's going to be the last one, but I have a debt to the world. I have a debt to innocent people and innocent children to try to make sure. And, I don't have the power to adjudicate. I don't have the power to write legislation. I do have the power to intimidate judges and senators and congressmen who've been sitting on the same information that I have and doing nothing. You are all guilty of misprision, of felony pedophilia, and you will all be dealt with. Will you be dealt with by Field McConnell? No, you will not. But if I had the power, you would already have been. Indeed. Our children of every nation, the children need to be safe.
Absolutely. So, Field, let's continue just looking around the space a bit, because I think people are going to
be... Okay, follow me over here and watch the trip hazard. There's water bottles.
Okay, sure.
But if we come over here, there's a safe. Now you can see the
wow.
safe door. This used to be a bank. And on a late night in the winter of probably 33 or 34, the bank president came down to the bank, opened up the safe, and took all the deposits and drove to Canada.
What?
Okay. Now, if we're going to go to the other side where there's another door to the safe.
Let's do it, but we might get far away for the microphones. Let's try it.
Okay,
But let's try it. Let's try it. I'll monitor the audio and we'll
Yeah.
No, let's do it. I think people want to see it.
Okay.
And if we get too far away, we'll just come back.
Okay. This is where I broadcast from. It's quite a messy, but it's also, there's a lot of history on every wall. There's gifts that I get from people around the world. Somebody moved my favorite gift. And so, you know, with 911 listeners, there's certainly going to be several that are offended.
There's more now.
A lady from Wisconsin who likes what I do, she sent me this hand-carved statue of Jesus carrying a lamb. I just said in the other room, we got to protect our children.
Yeah.
That's what God calls the children lambs. You know, a lamb is a youthful sheep. I'm a sheep, and a baby sheep is a lamb. And this guy carries his lambs. And that's what I'm encouraging our government and the Russians' government. I'm suggesting to Russia and the United States that we need to protect our children, and the message is getting through. Here's a lot of pictures of World War II airplanes. There's a calendar, there's a fishing hat. There's a picture of a C-121, which is very similar to Air Force One in the Eisenhower's era. That type of an aircraft was Air Force One, and in the case of his Air Force One, it was named Columbine, just like where they killed the children in Colorado.
Yeah.
Well, the columbine's a flower that grows indigenous or native to Kansas, and either Eisenhower or his wife or both had a history with Kansas, and that's why they named Air Force One Columbine. But let's go over here. This is what I used to do for the 6 most impressive years of my life. I was a Marine pilot, and that sort of set my thinking for the rest of my life. This is my father and his crew of a B-24, and my dad ended up crashing one of these, not this one, another one, into a river, the Yangtze River, and 10 out of the 12 men died. My dad, fortunately for me, survived. There's my parents, who are both deceased, and their remains are at Arlington. And this is going to sound boastful, not to you, but this airplane is in Canton, Texas, and it's a McDonnell Douglas F-4 Phantom. And if anybody that's listening Googles Field McConnell's jet, that airplane will come up, because everyone on the internet thinks that that was my jet. No, it wasn't, but I flew that. They made 5,200. I flew that specific airplane for 13 years when I was with the North Dakota Air National Guard. And it's my Air National Guard experience, coupled with my airlining experience, coupled with my sister being part of 9/11, coupled with my Air National Guard unit responding over Washington, D.C. on 9/11, and my college classmate, Captain Francis Chick Burlingame, he was the American captain of Flight 77, which did not hit the Pentagon.
Right.
And he had written the war exercise plan for Amalgam Virgo 01, and that's why he had to die. He wrote the script for what was it went rogue and went live on 9/11, and the guy who wrote the script as a war gamer, his name, and he is my college classmate in Annapolis, Captain Francis Charles Burlingame, but everybody called him Chick, C-H-I-C. And so whether I want to or not, I'm tied to these evil things by my true history.
And what happened to Chick? How did they take him out?
His aircraft was remotely commandeered with a Boeing uninterruptible autopilot, and it was taken out to a military airspace called Whiskey 386 Alpha Airspace, which is 60 miles, the entry point is 60 miles east of Norfolk, Virginia. And in that Whiskey 386 Alpha Airspace, the United States Air Force was making sure that nobody was flying in that area. The U.S. Coast Guard was making sure that there were no surface vessels in that area that might witness this. And the United States Navy had subsurface submarines ensuring there's nobody floating around under the water with a periscope, because they took 3 airplanes, the 2 New York airplanes, United 175 and American 11, and the one with my college classmate, American 77. They all 3 went to Whiskey 386 Alpha Airspace, and they were vaporized. What that means is a explosive that's actually rocket fuel. It's called SMACSonic, SMACSONIC. They vaporized the airplanes, killing everybody in them. The people were already dead due to being gassed. But anyway, they destroyed the evidence. Now, there were 4 airplanes, and I only talked about 3. The 4th one, United 93, was 41 minutes late, leaving Newark.
Right.
So they had to deal with that because it was supposed to, not the airplane, but the drone replacement was supposed to strike the U.S. Capitol, where the Congress and Senate were both in session. And it was the intention of 9/11, by the way, if you want the short version, it was to kill off our existing elected officials and replace them with a shadow government. And the shadow government that was going to replace them was led by, among others, Hillary Rodham Clinton and my sister, Christine Marcy. And somebody imputed, and I'm going to say that again, imputed, because if you look up United 93, imputed, 41-minute delay, and Shanksville, you'll find that somebody delayed the departure of United 93, and that's why the attack of 9/11, which was a false flag, but it involved other countries. It involved the Jesuits, it involved the global bankers, it involved the UK Royals, it involved the senior executive service, it involved Serco, it involved some really bad people, and everything I know, Donald Trump knows. And how can I say that? Because I've sent him every single thing I know, and he doesn't have the time to read it, but his Marine generals and their staff, they do. And do they respond to me? No, they couldn't. But they respond to me in action, not words.
Wow. It's amazing, Field.
Oh,
Really
it's-
amazing. And we can see more relics of the bank over here, Plum City State Bank.
This is also the safe. It's the same safe, it's just 2 doors. We're in the bank president's office. You'll see a variety of stuff in here, a lot of books, T-shirts, memorabilia, and it's an interesting building, and it's public. Anybody who wants to come here, I only have 29 hours a day, and I'm busy for 36 of them. But we've got people from out of town right now. We got a lady from New York City who, by the way, bought me this hat because the lady named Kathy bought me this Stetson hat, and she thinks I'm a white hat, and she's right. I am a white hat, but she's the one that got me the hat. Now, this afro wig, does that mean I'm belittling black people? No, I'm lifting them up. Some of the best gospel singers, some of the best rock singers, all of the best soul singers are all black people, and they've got incredible faith, especially with the treatment they've received historically in our country. So I love them, they love me. Here's just something that Northwest gave me when I basically had to retire, because if I didn't retire, they would have done to me what they do to all whistleblowers, is they get you a psychological diagnosis, they put you on psychotropic drugs, and here comes the punchline. And that's only so you cannot be an expert witness in court. My expert witness value is alive and well, and as you can clearly see, I'm willing to talk about everything I know about. There's a wonderful airplane I flew up in Fargo for the North Dakota Air National Guard. Now, is that a legitimate Air Force paint job? No. And that sort of represents the collective mood and dedication of the North Dakota Air National Guard. We were willing to do anything our nation called upon us, but we also wanted to keep our morale high. And here's a good demonstration of high morale. We got a blue F4 that says North Dakota Centennial. There's some behind you now. There's a couple of banners that were made in Canada that say abledanger.org. There's this is a belt. This is not the belt buckle I gave you, but these belt buckles say Ephesians 5:11, and you can see the number 9 in the Twin Towers. It's my opinion, and this is my opinion. This is not a fact. I believe Putin and Trump are going to revisit 9/11 starting in September of this year. If they do, I would not be surprised in the least, and you might be included, Jason, based on what I heard 30 minutes ago. I would not be surprised in the least if Trump and Putin didn't invite me to make good on my offer of a key tam. I've got a key tam lawsuit. It's right here, and it's also written.
What is a key tam lawsuit?
It means some individual, in a citizen or a subject, who will bring a claim that proves a crime against the government or the royals of a country. And that's I can be a very strong witness on 9/11. so can David Hawkins, so can you, according to what you just told me, with the debunking of the CGI. Donald Trump knows my name. Vladimir Putin knows my name. I think, I can't speak for them, but I think they know that they hear the truth when I speak or write. And I've written 3 different times to the Russian KGB, or whatever you call it. There's another word too.
SVR, GRU.
Whatever. Yeah. But they changed their names just like we changed our T-shirts. But
well, I think after the fall of the Soviet Union, they changed it.
If we could go on for hours about that. But if Donald Trump and Putin want to go after 9/11, and I know Putin would like to, and I believe Donald would like to, he said so when he was running for office. David Hawkins and I and yourself could be valuable witnesses, and I've set the damages at $18 trillion, and I think I'm on the low side.
Why don't we go reconnect with Denise? Let's find her, and maybe why don't we show people, if the microphone range will allow, we can just take a look at the outside of the building. I think people would really... Denise, would you like to join us outside just for a moment? Sure. I think people would really enjoy seeing Plum City. And, this is really... We're here in small town America, so after you.
Yeah, population 590.
I saw that sign when I was driving over.
Oh, so here's some people I don't know. They're just
they might not want to be
street.
On camera.
Yeah, they might be shy, but we're not shy, and we're not trying to make an issue of ourselves. It's just that God brought us together, and she has enough nerve to stand alongside a whistleblower.
It's great.
It's not easy.
So I just want to show everyone this building. It's impressive. The global headquarters of Able Danger here, a classic old bank building. How did you come to occupy this building, Field?
Well, there's been a variety of businesses that have tried and failed to make money here. And one day I was over in the bakery, and I said to the lady in the bakery, that building over there, I see half of it's empty. Do you know if a person could rent that half? And she says, I think so, but go to the hardware store, because the man who owns this building is in the hardware store. So I went over and talked to him, and he said, yeah, you can rent the half, or if you wait a month, you can rent the whole thing, because the other business is going out of business, and you could rent it all for X number of dollars a month. And I said, well, you just tell me when I can move in, and I'm going to do radio broadcast and do some interesting work in this building. And so I've been here for about 9 or 10 years.
Wow.
And I rent it, and it will play a part in the history of the United States of America. But I'd say more importantly, this building will play a part in the history of Russia, in the history of peace, in the history of the exposure of pedophilia and the crimes that have been committed by a consortium of evil people from the UK government, the US government, the Jesuit Vatican, the Jesuit branch of the Vatican, the global bankers, the Rothschild family. Denise and I have actually stayed in a Rothschild house. Now, if they would have known what Denise and I did, would we have been invited in? I don't know. I don't think so. But we were invited in, and we accepted their gracious hospitality, and here we are today, free. I was going to say free American. She's still a British citizen or subject. But we are in America, and we love America, but we love each other more than we love any country. And if we had to be together in Puerto Rico, or if we had to be together in Russia, or Belize, or Liberia, Costa Rica, we don't really care where we go as long as we care about each other and we're together.
Wow. Wow. It's really amazing to be here. I'm so glad you invited me, Field, and I think people will really appreciate seeing you out from behind the desk and in your habitat here. I know you don't do this for money, but it is obvious that you need money to run Able Danger, so I do want to encourage people who are watching to visit abledanger.org, and there they can link up with your Patreon page and the various ways that they can support the effort. It's really so exciting. We're going to be doing the Plum City Plunge, right?
Yep, that's
what is that exactly?
It's a gathering of people from around the world that understand what it is that Able Danger truly does, and that we're just common people that want the world to be better. And I don't know if you've noticed that purple limousine over there.
Oh yeah, I did notice that.
But see, I drive unusual cars, and my point is, first of all, I like cars. I hate driving, so when Denise and I go someplace, she usually drives. And the reason I don't like driving is because in my professional career spanning 40 years, I tended to cruise at 8 miles a minute, and I get bored going 1 mile a minute. And I'm always thinking. That doesn't mean I'm thinking correctly, or I'm coming up with truthful remedies, but I'm always thinking about, what's wrong with my country, what's wrong with the global cabal, what's wrong with my sister, what's wrong with the United Kingdom, what's wrong with these people who believe in royalty that's not a spiritual master. And my spiritual master tells me that he's the only royalty, and that's my mindset. And there's another person, I'm not sure how your battery's doing.
It's good, we can still go.
Okay, well, this person he's not shy about cameras, and so
So the bank is across the street now.
that's a different bank, and that's now the bakery. And I'm going to call out to. I didn't do it. Come on, you're on the camera already. Come speak to us. He and I are sort of two people that are behind the plunge. He operates a bed and breakfast, and he understands what I do and what David does and what you do. But the people that are not family members of mine, like yourself, are staying in his bed and breakfast. His name's Phil Roberts. And
hello,
welcome
Phil. Lovely to meet you.
Lovely to meet you.
So here, you can stand close to my microphone here, or
Yes.
we can even stay here. Stand next to Field. That's perfect.
Okay. So how close do I have to get to him?
I
That's
think you're
just
good
about
right
close
there.
enough. Mon goes straight.
Well, so we're all excited for the Plum City Plunge, and people in the chat field are asking to see the bakery, which I think it's just right
That's
over
it,
there.
right there.
Right
it
next
says
to the bank,
Bittersweet
right?
Bakery and more. And we've got cookies. When we go in, Denise has 2 pies, don't you? Or are they in the car? They're in here. There's 2 pies, and there's maybe a dozen cookies. And I'm not going to say the lady's name because there are people around here that don't really truly understand what I do and whether I'm on the good team or the bad team, and I understand that. But the name of the bakery is visible, Bittersweet Bakery and More, and they're open Tuesday through Saturday of every week. And Denise and I picked up 2 pies for tonight, and tomorrow we're picking up 2 more pies because, as you probably know, Jason, I've got 3 of my children and their significant others, in 2 cases, spouses with. I've got 2 grandsons that'll you'll see them before you leave. One of them is 8 months old, and one of them is 3 months old.
Wow.
And so when I say things about we need to take care of children, yeah, we need to take care of my children and grandchildren, but we need to take care of the world's children. And the people in the Franklin cover-up and the people like with the George H.W. Bush White House in 1989 who were taking young, vulnerable men out of Nebraska using U.S. government aviation transport, and then they were having their way with them, that ain't going to float anymore.
That's evil.
No, it is evil. And, I'm a 68-year-old male, and I'm a heterosexual. And I'm very fortunate. I have a very lovely wife who cares about me. But there's right down the street, there's a couple of young girls just playing and having fun. And in this environment, right here in Plum City, Wisconsin, kids are supervised, but not as closely as they need to be in other locations. Because the mother and father of 2 of those kids are working in that restaurant. But I'm seeing them, and he's seeing them, and other people in the community see those kids. And if anybody tried to harm one of those children, long before law enforcement got here, they'd be dealt with.
Yeah.
I want to interrupt just for a second.
You always do. Please do.
If anybody, later on says something about, Field and Phil look a little pie-eyed, it's the bakery's
The bakery.
fault.
Yeah. That's why she didn't have whipped cream, because she wanted our faces to be fruity, but not, concealed.
But still recognizable.
Yeah.
This has been such a fun and informative live stream. This has really been a different take on any stream that I've ever done before or anything I've seen on your channel. So I'm really, really glad we got an opportunity to do this, Phil.
Well, and that's totally indicative of the nature of this town. It allows us to be relaxed and in ourselves. So we don't have to put on a front. We don't have to be different. We don't have to, keep up with anything. We do what we do. We enjoy what we do. We go to work doing each other's stuff every day. And Field does what he does, I do what I do. We get together in between there somewhere, and everything matches and works, and it's wonderful.
Yeah, and we're secure.
Yeah.
We're not shaking in our boots. In fact, I'm not wearing boots, and I can't believe that. Yeah, he's not wearing boots either.
And we're not standing in crap.
Yeah, you're right.
Well, I think what we should do now is maybe we'll head back inside, we'll wrap up this stream, and we'll get ready to enjoy the Plum City Plunge.
Well, I'll hold
That's
the door,
awesome.
and all three of you go through the door, and I'll rejoin you.
Wonderful. Okay.
Go ahead, Phil. We might watch out for wires, and I'm being recorded right now, but there's wires there.
Yep.
And the three of us can fit on that couch, Denise in the middle. See how good she is at listening to me?
Yeah.
As soon as I said Denise in the middle, she sits where she wanted to, which is just fine.
And I'm going to be on the left, or on the right, because you're always on the left.
Okay, well, I'm usually left out, but anyway, we've had quite an interview, and I can't wait to see it later. And not only, I truly like your interview style.
Thank
and
you.
as I said to you before we came on camera, I get people that contact me via email typically and say, I love what you and David do, but I don't think you should talk to Jason. Well, you know what? Let me just say this to everybody in the world. No, that's okay. I'll talk to anybody. I talk to anybody I want to talk to. And I particularly like talking to Jason, not only because, but mainly, Jason is always prepared to ask us good questions.
Right.
He already knows the subject matter. We don't have a script. Everything. In fact, I've got my phone here. I'm dazzled it hadn't rung. But if the reason it's still on is if it did ring, it would prove we're unscripted and we're live. And the truth is alive, and the truth is coming in so many different ways. And I would, if I could give a message of hope to England, Russia, the United States, Israel, and China, those 5 countries, I would say good things are coming for all 5 of those countries. And as far as the criticism of Jason, if anybody wants to criticize Jason, that's fine. Don't criticize him to me, because I have faith in him, and I appreciate your having all 3 of us on and taking a look at Plum City and take a look at the Able Danger Global Headquarters, which basically there's 18 intelligence agencies in the United States of America. They all compete for budget dollars. We do what we do, motivated because, in my case, because of God. But we're all common people, and we all hate. We're live right now, but come on in and listen. We're all common people, and we have a collective commitment to make, except for some people that spill things. Like, this is Pastor Mark Runyon, and he's known as Braveheart. We're filming too. That's okay. You're not going to disrupt anything. All we want to do is we want the world that our children grow up in to be better than the world that we were lucky enough to survive in.
And we're in danger right now of that not being the case. So I want to thank you, Field, for inviting me here and for your just generosity and speaking to me all the time. This stream allowing everyone to see the inner workings of the Able Danger Global Headquarters, and I'm really looking forward to the Plum City Plunge. Thank you so much, Field.
Well, you're very welcome.
And thank you, Denise. I really appreciate you speaking with us. Phil,
Thank you, Jason.
Thank you
Pleasure.
for inviting me here.
And I'm a little late today because I still do, by choice, operate a business up on the hill, and I have customers, and something struck me as Field was talking about how Field cares about people and takes care of people in many respects. And I'm late today because I have customers that I care about, and so I take care of people in my realm, and then I come and join Field and Denise in things that, you know, we both have a lot of pride and interest in, if I might, you know, being part of correcting in the world. And I got some interesting news today because my grandson Roy, who I believe is one of the very few, if not the only one, to set Field up in a rocket mortar attack.
What?
4th of July fireworks. I told Roy, I said, Roy, how old are those fireworks? And he said, I don't know. And Roy asked his grandpa, how old are the fireworks? And he said, 8 or 10 years. I said, Roy, Don't light them.
Dangerous.
They're dangerous. And of course, he didn't listen to me, like young people.
Well, I instructed him to go out in the middle of the yard and set this little thing up and shoot it off. Well, so he goes out there, puts it in the lawn. He's probably close to 100 yards away.
Yep.
And one rocket goes in the air. It tips over, and myself and Field and Denise are standing behind a vehicle next to my house, and when it tipped over, it shot mortars. 2 of them hit Field in the shoulder.
Whoa.
I thought it was funny.
Well, it was very fortunate nobody got hurt, and we
Yes.
laughed about it later. But my wife comes walking out of the garage door, and Field says, "Mary, I just got hit by a couple of mortars." And Mary says, "I can see that, Field. You're on fire."
My jacket was burning.
Well, Field is always on fire.
So I do have the jacket to prove it. And Field, even though he took it to England not long after that, he brought it back and he gave it to my grandson, Roy. Mm-hmm. And I just got news that Roy may be back at noon tomorrow and able to come to the dinner at Vino.
Oh, good.
So
Now, before we wrap it up, can I show our guests here, or just a second? Okay, so we're just gonna. Anything else that you guys would like to share before we? Okay, so here we've got Agent. Do you guys want to introduce yourselves?
Agent Brandy's the female, and Agent Braveheart's the male.
We're not going to be able to hear you very clearly from over there, but we wanted to say hello and thank you guys for joining us. We
Great
have
to be here.
the mother of an American ninja with us.
I am. I'm a ninja mom.
Ninja mom.
I'm a
That's
ninja mom.
perfect. Absolutely great. Well, we're looking forward to the Plum City Plunge, and with that, I want to thank everybody for watching. I want to thank the team here at Able Danger for inviting me. This has been a great stream. It's so good to see you guys back together, and evil is losing.
Mm-hmm.
yes.
Yeah.
In
Oh,
a big way.
we're happy and we're blessed.
Absolutely. Thanks for watching, everybody. We'll see you soon.
Thank you.